Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Ahmed with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. India has yet again registered the world's highest cases and its record deaths in a day. The country has logged more than 360,000 infections and over 3,200 deaths overnight. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported record 201 COVID-19 deaths and more than 5,200 infections overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.1 million lives and infected over 148 million people so far. US Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says Washington and its allies will sanction the Taliban if they pursue military takeover of Afghanistan. During a Senate hearing, Khalilzad said the US is helping Kabul find replacement for departing American contractors. It comes after Washington ordered non-essential staff to leave its Kabul embassy, citing increased threats. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says Riyadh wants good ties with Tehran, but its negative behavior continues to be a problem. In an interview with Al Arabiya, the prince said Riyadh is working with the world to find solutions to issues like Iran's nuclear and missile program. The Crown Prince also renewed Riyadh's offer for a settlement with Yemen's Houthi rebels. Meanwhile, Riyadh says its air defenses have destroyed a Houthi drone launched towards the kingdom. The United States says its naval ship fired warning shots after 3 vessels from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy came close to it in the Gulf. In a statement, the U.S. military said it is not the aggressor but will conduct effective defensive measures if necessary. Well, these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. India has yet again registered the world's highest cases and its record deaths in a day. The country has logged more than 360,000 infections and over 3,200 deaths overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.1 million lives and infected over 148 million people so far. For over a year now, the pandemic has ruptured the social and economic fabric of the society. Asian Development Bank has warned that the region's expected solid economic rebound this year could be risked by new outbreaks and delays in vaccine rollout. The bank has provided India $1.5 billion to deal with its crisis. Meanwhile, despite the ravaging number of infections, devotees in India gathered at temples to mark the birth anniversary of the Hindu monkey god.
We're asking devotees to adhere to the social distancing norms. The coronavirus is spreading very fast in the city and it is our duty to keep people safe. So we are announcing on the loudspeakers and asking devotees to offer prayers at their homes and do not crowd the temples.
Over in Europe, Ukraine has acquired a $90 million loan from the World Bank to procure vaccines. Belgium has tightened its travel ban on Brazil, India and Southern Africa. Meanwhile, in the U.S., President Joe Biden says fully vaccinated Americans do not need to wear masks during outdoor activities when there is no crowd.
While we still have a long way to go in this fight and a lot of work to do in May and June to get us to July 4th, we've made stunning progress because of all of you, the American people.
In South America, Brazil's Senate has opened an inquiry into the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The country reported 3,086 more deaths, bringing the total to over 395,000. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported its record single-day deaths from COVID-19 as 201 people lost their lives overnight. The Health Ministry says the countrywide death toll has now reached 17,530. It said nearly 5,300 more people tested positive overnight. The caseload has crossed 810,000, out of which more than 704,000 people have recovered. The ministry said there are over 88,000 active cases in the country. The country's coronavirus positivity rate stands at 10.7%. Planning Minister Asad Umar says daily vaccinations in the country crossed the 100,000 mark yesterday. So far, more than 2 million people have been vaccinated in Pakistan. Now, US Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says Washington and its allies will sanction the Taliban if they pursue a military takeover of Afghanistan. Khalilzad was testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on US policy in Afghanistan. Khalilzad said Washington will hold the Taliban accountable for their commitment to preventing terrorists from using Afghan soil against the United States. He added the choice that the Afghans face is between a negotiated political settlement and a long war. Khalilzad said the US is helping Kabul find replacements for departing American contractors. The envoy noted he does not believe there will be an imminent collapse of the Afghan government. Khalilzad said the US intends to maintain embassy and will continue to provide development assistance. It comes after Washington ordered non-essential staff to leave its Kabul embassy, citing increased threats. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says Riyadh wants good ties with Tehran, but its negative behavior continues to be a problem. In an interview with Al Arabiya, the Crown Prince said Riyadh is working with the world to find solutions to issues like Iran's nuclear and missile program. The Crown Prince highlighted the extremism threats posed to the kingdom as he renewed Riyadh's offer for a settlement with Yemen's Houthi rebels. He expressed hopes that Houthis will accept the dialogue call to reach solutions. Meanwhile, Arab coalition fighting in Yemen said its air defenses destroyed an armed Houthi drone launched towards the Saudi city of Khamis Mushaid. The coalition also refuted claims that Houthis have made advances in Yemen's oil-rich Marib province against Yemeni forces. United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen, Martin Griffiths, has also called on the rebels to halt their Marib offensive. Houthis have rejected a Saudi peace plan while the heavy fighting rages on in Marib. Now, the US says its naval ship fired warning shots after 3 vessels from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy came close to it in the Gulf. This is the second incident in as many days that the two sides have had a close encounter in the international water. In a statement, the US military said the Firebolt issued multiple warnings via bridge-to-bridge radio and loud-hailer devices. It added the crew fired the warning shots after the vessels continued their close-range maneuvers. However, they moved away to a safe distance from the US vessels following the shots. The military added the US is not the aggressor, but it will conduct effective defensive measures when necessary. Now, the US and Israel have agreed to form a working group focused on what they called threats posed by Iran's drones and missiles. This comes after US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and his Israeli counterpart Meir Ben Shabbat held a meeting in Washington. The diplomats accused Tehran of providing drones and precision-guided missiles to its allies. The White House said both sides agreed on the significant threat posed by Iran's behavior in the Middle East. The meeting comes on the same day the world powers and Iran began a third round of talks in Vienna over the 2015 nuclear deal, where Tehran's chief negotiator Abbas Araghchi has once again stressed that all sanctions against Iran must be lifted. Now, a bipartisan group of US senators has urged the Biden administration to slap more sanctions on the military junta in Myanmar. This includes choking revenues to a state energy company over its coup and violent crackdown on protesters. In a letter, the senators call for exploring new avenues to support the people of Burma in their struggle for democracy. Meanwhile, the National Unity Government has told ASEAN it will not engage in talks until the junta releases all political prisoners. In a statement, NUG said the bloc should be engaging with it as the legitimate representative of the people. Earlier, the United Nations asked the junta chief to honor commitments made at the ASEAN summit in Jakarta. In an open letter, Special Rapporteur to Myanmar Tom Andrews called for an immediate cessation of violence Activists say security forces have killed over 750 people since the military coup on 1st of February. Moving on, our Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the army must remain on alert despite Russia's drawdown of its troops. He said this while visiting the forward positions of the Ukrainian forces near the Crimean Peninsula. Zelensky said there is not a 100% guarantee that Russian troops won't turn around. In Moscow, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said Russia had not pulled back forces because of external pressure. He said Moscow moved troops around on its territory as it saw fit. Earlier, Ukraine said it will declare the Russian envoy in the port city of Odessa persona non grata. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry says it will summon the ambassadors of Slovakia and 3 Baltic states today. State media did not give a reason for the move. Earlier, Slovakia, Poland and Hungary said they supported the Czech Republic's expulsion of Russian diplomats. Last week, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia expelled 4 Russian diplomats over alleged espionage. In recent weeks, several former Soviet bloc countries in Europe have expelled Russian diplomats, triggering reciprocal measures by Moscow. Now, the United States says an open dialogue with Russia will benefit the bilateral relation between the two countries. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the remarks in an interview while commenting on a possibility of a U.S.-Russian summit. Blinken said Washington counts on a more stable and predictable relationship between the two countries. He said both sides are exploring the possibility of a proposed summit and talking about its timing. The top diplomat added the U.S. is ready to respond if Russia continues to engage in aggressive or reckless actions. This comes a day after Moscow said the actions by the United States and the NATO alliance in Europe are contributing to an increased military threat. Now, the U.S. Capitol has been put on alert ahead of President Joe Biden's first address to a joint session of the Congress today. The attendees will be a fraction of the hundreds of who typically attend to allow for social distancing amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The event is officially designated as a national special security event with the Secret Service in charge of security. The authorities have asked the Pentagon to authorize the National Guard contingent to assist the local police. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she is confident about the security for Biden's speech. Some 2,200 armed National Guard troops are guarding the Capitol building since the January 6 riots. Also in the U.S. state of North Carolina, lawyers for the family of Andrew Brown Jr. say an independent autopsy shows he died from a shot to the head. The 42-year-old black man was killed by sheriff's deputies during an attempted arrest in Elizabeth City. The lawyers held a news conference to release the findings of the autopsy. They said the victim was struck with multiple bullets in the arm before the fatal shot to his head. The lawyers added Andrew was innocent and termed the police killing an act of unjustified shooting. The FBI says it is opening a federal civil rights investigation into the shooting. More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back now. Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama has declared victory for his Socialist Party, claiming a record third term. The Election Commission said the Socialists were ahead on 74 seats in the 140-seat parliament. It added that the main opposition alliance was trailing with 59 seats with more than 95% of the polling. Observers said the counting process had gone smoothly even after the campaign was marred by violence. The previous election in 2017 prompted street protests while some opposition MPs boycotted the parliament. Now, an earthquake of magnitude 6.4 has struck India's northeastern state of Assam. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake hit at the depth of 34 kilometers. According to local media, the quake caused extensive damage to buildings and cracked open roads. Strong tremors also struck other northeastern areas and the neighboring mountainous regions of Bhutan. However, no casualties have been reported so far. Now, Nigeria has called on the U.S. to move its military headquarters overseeing Africa from Germany to the continent. President Muhammadu Buhari held a virtual meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He said the relocation of the U.S. Africa Command will better tackle growing armed violence in the region. Buhari cited growing security challenges in the West and Central Africa, the Gulf of Guinea, the Lake Chad region and the Sahel. He said the support of strategic partners like the United States cannot be overstated. The president also welcomed the U.S. decision to repeal visa restrictions on Muslim and African countries. Now, in Chad, at least 5 protesters have been killed and 36 injured in clashes with security forces. Thousands are demonstrating against the rule of a transitional military council. In N'Djamena, security forces used tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters. Protesters burned tires in several neighborhoods and firefighters struggled to contain the blaze. The council is being led by the son of the late president, Idris Deby, who died last week after clashes with the rebels. The protesters are demanding a transition to civilian rule. Meanwhile, Mohammed Deby has promised a national dialogue and also pledged to fight terrorism. A man in the Philippines has set a unique world record by collecting thousands of fast food chain toys. More about his collection in this report. From the age of 5, Filipino graphic artist Percival Lugu has had passion for collecting toys from fast food restaurant chains. Now, nearly 5 decades later, the 50-year-old has about 20,000 toys packed from floor to ceiling in his home. He holds a Guinness World Record since 2014 when his collection reached more than 10,000 items.
As far as I can remember, when I was still a kid, I've already been collecting toys. Not necessarily the fast food toys that I have right now. But I remember having all the toys, playing with them, of course. But then I really take good care of them. And then as a young kid, I've already known myself to be putting them on display, on cabinets.
Lugu, who lives in Apalit in Pampanga, a province northwest of Manila, built his home especially to house his collection.
In the future, I wanted to have a museum of some sort for this fast food toy collection. And I remember many times when my friends come over and see some of the toys here, they would exclaim "Oh, I used to have that toy and I used to play around with it." So I guess if eventually this museum will open, this will also give them a chance to revisit their own childhood memories.
His dream now is to eventually put his collection on display for the public. Lugu has always played with the toys, but even as a child took good care of them and put them on display. He likens the excitement that getting new toys gives him to Christmas morning. Now, Asian stock markets are trading mixed as investors decipher earnings data and forecasts regarding the upcoming US Fed meeting. Australia's ASX is leading the gains, rising close to 0.5%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 also edged up marginally. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has advanced fractionally. Seoul's Kospi has dropped over 1%, while shares in mainland China are trading somewhat flat. With that, we come to the end of this News Bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.